Yo, y'all, what's going on?
Man, almost the weekend. Just counting down.
It's
Oh yeah.
almost weekend. Happy Friday, Junior, to everybody out there. If you made it this far, you survived the pandemic.
Yep. Nick, I hope you can get your baconator or whatever today.
Uh, man.
I don't live down there, so I ain't gonna be down there this Sunday, so I ain't gotta worry about
Look, I'm just pretty sure I ain't gonna get it. I ain't even try to go get it.
it. Yeah, I heard in Marshville they have Marshville won't open either. But hey, whatever.
Yes, whatever.
Wow, that's crazy right there.
Hey, come on up here to
Yeah,
Charlotte, man. They're like four of them in the same side of town, so one of them you should be able to get what you need.
Yeah.
right. Get all you need in one stop shop, four corners of town.
Yep.
But yeah, we back for another episode this week, man. I'm your host, Simply Nicholas 87. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. T Harden and Mr. D Ron 2000. Gentlemen, what's going on?
On not much, man. Ready to get this podcast started.
Oh yeah, we finna get started. We finna hop right into it right now.
Yeah, we got a good subject tonight too.
Yeah, we got a good one tonight. Uh, for everybody out there that ain't subscribed to the channel, y'all go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, share this video on all social media platforms. And if you would like to donate to the channel, the cash app is below on the ticker. Uh, yeah, man. So let's get started. How'd y'all feel about the draft, man? What was your take on the draft?
Ah man. I think when it comes to draft, I think there's a lot of bias, especially towards certain quarterbacks. It's been a bias that's gone on for years. And I'll give an example. There's certain quarterbacks where people like Mel Kiper, Todd McShay will brag about how cerebral they are, how smart they are, how they're able to process and apply information, how they're a student on the field type thing. Whereas the other quarterbacks, they'll describe him that he's mobile, he's dynamic, he's electrifying. But my criticism is of him is that can he handle an NFL offense? Whereas when he played in the college like offense, one read offense, zone read type offense, can he can he handle an NFL playbook and be able to apply that information? There's certain quarterbacks they never questioned that about. So I kind of have a sour taste in my mouth sometimes when I watch the NFL draft because of that reason.
D?
I agree with that because we see how it played out that in that same sense. So, you know, they put certain ones on the pedestal, just like they do certain linebackers from time to time too. Um, yeah, it's good and bad when it comes to the draft. The good thing is you see what your personal team did, but also you see how certain players just get hung out to dry. And it's not fair, but it's just the way things are all around the board when it comes to sports, society, politics. We just have to see certain things all the time that just make you question, like, why is it we have a asterisk by certain things?
Because the bias exists. And not to beat a dead horse, but like you were saying about certain positions, like the linebacker, primarily the middle linebacker position is the one that holds that same stigma. And on the offensive line, the center position holds that stigma because the middle linebacker is supposed to be the person who's the general, the brains. Same thing on offensive line. The center is supposed to be like the general, the brains of the offensive line. And there's certain players and certain type of players who get associated with having brains, and then there are other type players who only get associated with raw athleticism. And I think we all know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, we definitely do. uh my take on it personally, uh, it's very interesting. I like to see all these picked quarterbacks that from 1 to 3 show me a little something. I don't see them being I put it like that. I don't see them making a difference in that team in the first 2 years, starting from 1 to 3.
Who Lawrence with Jackson?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Lawrence is going to start though. I mean, who else they have? Gardner, Minshew. I think I still rather have a rookie Lawrence than Gardner Minshew. They're not going to win a lot of games regardless, but I think that team. I don't think they're going to be like a bottom feeder, like picking first next year. Though I feel like they can be like a middle
They
of the
can
road
make a
team
little
that'll miss the
noise.
playoffs.
I see them being like third in their division, possibly.
Well, who's in their division?
It's Houston,
Houston. I don't think Houston's going to win many games at all. Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Who else is
Tennessee.
Tennessee probably is going to win that division. I would guess.
I'm thinking it too. I'm leaning strong on them.
They're more. I can say Tennessee is probably more established. When I mean by established, they got pieces in certain places that they're ready. Unfortunately, like the other teams, like Indianapolis, where they're going through a quarterback situation now.
I was getting ready to say that. Yeah.
Just like, of course, Jacksonville, of course, and then who's the other one again?
Houston.
Houston, yeah, definitely Houston for sure. It's looking grim for them because of how they're on upper
they weren't good with Watson. Imagine how they'll be without him.
Yeah, most definitely. They lost certain pieces that were the cornerstone, and now
Yeah, you lose a top receiver like DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I still think Carson Wentz is better than Ryan Tannehill, though. I'm about to say Ryan Tannehill gets way too much credit for handing the ball off.
That's true.
He'll throw the ball 10 times a game. He hands the ball off again. And I know this off topic, and this is going to probably get deeper into the draft. But even that's basically what New England tried to do last year, but they didn't have the defense to do that. They had too many, and I know this off topic. I'm not going to go too long on that, but they had too many opt-outs on their defense, and they had nothing on defense. They had that idiot Nikhil, whatever his name is, Harry, is your number one receiver. Couldn't get in the situation. They tried to hand the ball off again, and they tried to run Newton into the ground. They tried to run him, and dinking and dunking, and they weren't able to win a lot of games doing that. And that's what Tennessee tries that too, but they have the defense to where they can do that, and it works.
Let me ask you this question since we're still on this topic about that. Do you see it being a quarterback competition in New England?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Newton goes into the season as a starter, but if he comes out and have a game where he throws 3 picks or something like that, and then of course, like let's say if he like that game against San Francisco where you throw 3 picks in the first half, and then they put Jones there and Jones rallied him back, then of course you got a controversy. But I don't think Belichick's going to go day one with a rookie. And I also think that drafting Jones will make Newton even better because now he knows he has to play. He knew that Jarrett Stidham won't want to take his job.
Yeah, he knew that. I mean, any person with a little knowledge knew that Jarrett Stidham was going to take Cam Newton's spot. Even when he got picked up for the 1-year deal.
But when you draft a guy in the first round at your position, you know that there's pressure on you to play. This is how I feel about that. I said last year when Newton went there, he didn't play nearly as bad as people think he played. He wasn't.
He didn't play bad.
He wasn't great. I want to make it clear. He wasn't great, but he was okay. What people keep saying, well, he only threw for 8 touchdowns. I'm like, yeah, but he ran for 12 touchdowns, so he still accounted for 20 touchdowns. As far as his completion rate and stuff, he completed about 65% of his passes. The issue was they were only throwing the ball 10 or 11 times a game. So
we didn't have any wideouts.
Right.
Literally, we had wideouts, but we didn't have any big threat wideouts. Like
you had 2 starters on the offensive line opt out. So I think the reason they ran that style of offense because they knew they struggled on the O-line. They knew they had 6 starters opt out on defense. I think at the time they were trying to shorten those games and trying to say, well, we'll just use him as a runner and see what we can do. I think with the offseason New England had, they probably had one of the better offseasons. With the weapons and stuff they got during the offseason, I think since you had him out there when you had absolutely nothing around him, at least give him a chance to see what he could do with the weapons that you got. And then if he comes out and doesn't play up to par, then of course you move on.
I agree.
Agreed. I mean, I would say, he definitely didn't have the best conditions, but like I said, now give him a chance, Don't just they about had him, out of the league at one point because people think
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but again, the man is a fighter, man. I just put it that way to you. You
Well,
know,
let me just, Cam Newton's a hot button issue become a Carolina fan. I'm gonna tell you something that bothers me about him. I'm gonna be frank and I'm gonna be unfiltered. This
Okay.
man, what bothers me, people try to portray this guy as if he was no good. This guy still, I'm talking about throughout his career, he's a 3-time
yep.
Pro Bowl. He's a former league
MVP.
MVP.
Right.
And what people don't understand is that through his first 7 years in the league, he held records for most passing yards through the first 7 years in the league, or second
Yep.
most behind Peyton Manning. These are facts. And
And
when
he
people
broke Peyton Manning record as a passer as a rookie. I think.
exactly, and then when people try to say that he's a runner, he's not a pocket passer. The year he won league MVP, all 35 of his touchdown passes came from the pocket. So and something else I want to give with a lot of people just don't like him. They don't like the way he
Absolutely.
dressed. They try to make insinuations about his sexuality. You got a lot of people that don't like when you have a black man who's flamboyant and outspoken. And a lot of people just simply don't like him because they don't like the way he presents himself. And so they try to psych themselves into believing that he wasn't any good because that way they can justify their dislike and the disrespect they have for him. Another thing, I have never seen a man where his own people, when I say his own people, I'm talking about black people. And I'm a black man for anybody who can't see my face. I've never seen a black man where other black people went so far out of the way to tear him down. And I ain't finished yet. I got more to say about this. I have never seen it to the point where you find black players, black fans, black everyone who go out of the way to help with those racist undertones about him when they question his aptitude as a pastor, when they go out of the way to disrespect him and try to make it as if he's less, to where it's almost like I don't understand where all the hatred come from. When he was here 9 years in Charlotte, never got in any trouble. He was always charitable. He gave footballs to kids. He carried that Panthers team on his back and didn't always have great weapons there either, and was still
And
able
embrace the city.
right, and still was able to get that team to a Super Bowl appearance, even though we lost. And everybody shits on him just like he might have been Jimmy Clausen or something. And that bothers me. And I think a lot of it has nothing to do with football. I think a lot of it has to do with who he is and how he presents himself, and people hate him because of it. And that bothers me.
I just want to add this to for people that don't know. First, I was gonna estimate, but I'm pretty sure I'm about accurate. I think the first 5 years in the league, Cam Newton got that thing to playoffs at least 3 times.
I know there was a 5-year span when he got him to the playoffs 4 times in a 5-year span. He got him to the playoffs in 13, 14. Hold up. He got him to the playoffs 13, 14, 15, and 17.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, that's pretty consistent getting the team into the playoffs.
No other quarterback. He got to Panthers to playoffs more than any other quarterback ever had. And prior to Newton's arrival, I know they still never had back-to-back winning seasons, but they had never even had back-to-back playoff seasons. He got them they won 3 straight division titles under him, and got to the playoffs 4 times in a 5-year span, all under him, including the year in which he won MVP and they got to a Super Bowl appearance. These are facts.
The year he won the Super Bowl, not Super Bowl, the year he won the MVP, rather, that's what I meant to say. Tell me a quarterback that had the year that he had. I mean, balance wise to a degree, because I mean, not only was he running.
I can argue that Lamar Jackson the year he 2 years ago had and they're not the same types. They're not the same stylistically, but I'm talking about as far as balance where running and throwing for double-digit touchdowns. But Newton's a more prolific passer than Jackson is right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and Jackson is at this stage in his career. What Newton and you got to understand, Ted Ginn Jr. was his number 1 receiver that year, and Philly Brown was the other receiver. Philly Brown ain't even in the league anymore.
They had us beat down that year too. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna be sorry." Going into the season, just the year Kevin Benjamin went down.
Yep.
And we were like, "Oh no, they're not gonna have a chance."
But honestly, I think the thing was better without Benjamin.
Well, of course they were, because they traded him in 2017. They still went 11 in the middle of the season. Still went 11-5 and made the playoffs that year. So I mean, and even the last year before Cam left Carolina, the last year that he played, he had an excellent season. And the first 11 games of the season, he was great. things started going south when he got against Pittsburgh when T.J. Watt went helmet first into his shoulder. But
Yep.
even for the next few games after that, he still played well. But that year we were bad defensively. And Luke
Yep.
Kuechly, I love Luke Kuechly, but he always got passes. Toward the last 3 years of Luke Kuechly was there, he was not the same Luke Kuechly he was the first 5 or so years he was there. But people always made excuses. They used the concussions and stuff. But when you mention injuries on Newton, they want to say, "Oh, well, he's out there playing." So there's also a discrepancy there that I won't even get into. Something else. In that season, a lot of it was bad game management for your coaching staff. Well, they started out 6-2. Even after they lost to Pittsburgh, the next 3 games or whatever, he was still excellent. Like even that game against Seattle, we lost that because of bad game management. He had an excellent game against Seattle that year. He still threw for 24 touchdowns, 13 picks that year. He still had a very good year in 2018. 2019, he only played 2 games. I'm about to say he played against LA Rams. We lost that game 34-31 or something
Tampa Bay.
And then against Tampa Bay, second half of that game, he wasn't good. But it happened. And then he didn't play anymore that season. And then last year was the first year he had played since then. So people want to act like he was on this downward spiral. But if you look at his numbers throughout his career, his numbers have actually been consistent. The actual outlier was his MVP season where he was great. But the other years he was still solid.
Well, I put it like this: they so mad about the Super Bowl, and I'm gonna say this because let me tell you something. He played against a good defense, so I don't care what nobody says about that. He played against
His O line let him down.
Yes, they did. Mike, and let's be specific. Mike Rimmers. Let me draw a parallel. We just watched Super Bowl Tampa Bay versus Kansas City. Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher were out. So and Mike Rimmers started at left tackle. Yep. And that Shaq Barrett and all them guys ate and who else they got rushing passes? MVP, Shaq Barrett, all those guys. They ate Mahomes alive. Yeah. And then someone wanted to say that Mahomes choked. I'm like, how can you say that? Because they couldn't block up front. That same Mike Rimmers was the starting left tackle against Denver Broncos when Von Miller lived in our backfield. Okay, you can make the argument about the whole fumble thing. That was one play. Can you looking at it in slow motion? Can you say, yeah, he may have had a chance to get that ball? So be it. That's one play. That doesn't define the entire game. And even had he recovered that, it would have still been like 3rd and 29 or something like that. And they couldn't block him up front. So that to me, they wanted just to make him the scapegoat. We weren't even able to run. Our offense line didn't even open up in the running lanes. We couldn't get Stewart going. We had nothing going on offense in that game because we couldn't block Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. And but nobody wants to talk about it. It's the same way Kansas City lost to Tampa Bay this year. I'm talking about as far as the offense line not being able to protect the front. But
they didn't even blitz.
But I know they just got there before. But the fact that people hate Newton so bad, it's easier to paint the narrative of Newton choke. And what bothered me the most is that you had black people singing that the loudest. And here's the thing with the quarterback position, as I was talking about before, there's always been the stigma that white quarterbacks are the brains and the cerebral and students, and the black quarterbacks are just raw athletes. So when we know that's a stigma about black quarterbacks, why do black people help push that narrative? It's almost as if black people, our own people, are conditioned to believe that the quarterback is supposed to be white. Even with black players, they're quicker to defend their white quarterback than they are their black quarterback. Same with their coaches. For example, when I know Geno Smith wasn't any good, so I'm not trying to make this out to be that. But when Geno Smith played with the Jets, you remember when that defense man broke his jaw in the locker room?
Yeah.
I told someone, I said, had that been a white quarterback, he wouldn't have dared laid a hand on him.
No, because
and I don't care what any. So what?
He'd probably been out the league.
Right. But the fact that he felt comfortable enough to walk up to his starting quarterback, punch him in the jaw and break his jaw and think nothing of it, that lets you know the respect the black quarterbacks have from their own people, from their own teammates, from their own peers, from people who look like them versus white quarterbacks.
My thing
but that's something that people don't want to talk about.
A quarterback is a quarterback. You can be black, white, pink, green, orange, whatever. If you can't, if you don't translate it to the field, it doesn't really. It's not even a color thing, in my opinion. Not even a color thing.
It shouldn't be. But let's even go back. Let's even go back to Josh, the guy that played cornerback for us that had that one good year. That same year in 2015, Norman and Newton got into a fight in training camp. I know training camp fights are often, but you never hear talk of a defensive player engaging in a fist fight with a quarterback. That's something that you never hear. But it felt that Norman felt comfortable enough to do that. I bet you $5 nobody was going to get in a fight with Darnold during the offseason.
Oh no.
No,
Uh,
no, 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 no.
they already put him. I mean,
Unless you Steve Smith.
this is the thing. I'm a Panther fan, of course. You know, it's with that. I just want to see how they treat him when he has those games. That's all I'm saying. I just want to see the narrative of how if he has a bad game, how they paint him in the media. That's all I want to see.
Are they
Me
gonna
too.
pat him on the back or kick him in the ass? Basically.
And it's gonna be like a gentle type criticism problem. It's gonna be like, hey, it's gonna be like he's still young and developing, still getting acclimated, especially if it's happening early in the season. He's still getting, let's be patient, let's give him time. I'm not a big fan of Matt Rule either because I think he's a lying politician SOB. But I'll get into that later, or for another discussion. But
Yeah, he's kind of the one. I'm like, I think he messed up with that one. I really do.
when I think of Matt Rule, what I cannot get out of my mind is that Minnesota Vikings game last year.
Yep.
And
I
then
said
he
it.
had audacity at the end of the season to throw Bridgewater under the bus. Bridgewater's not an all pro, we know that, but I'm talking about he's a middle of the road QB who's not a bum. But for him, as poor as some of I'm talking about as poor as some of Rule's game management was down the stretch of some of these games, that he got audacity just to throw his quarterback under the bus like that during the offseason. I was like that. I lost it. Whatever little respect I had for him was completely lost after that.
Yeah, he definitely didn't time manage the games a lot for the Panthers good last year. I mean, I seen it. It was, I mean, it wasn't one or two. It was a good dozen, not dozens, but a good few games, at least five, I could say. But we was in a lot of games last year. But
Yep.
Yeah, Kansas City,
yeah,
freaking what was another one? Yeah, I played a lot of close games.
We lost to the Raiders 37-34 or something like that.
yeah, the
Lost to
Raiders.
Kansas City by 2 points.
It was like the Minnesota game was a one game.
One score game, one possession game.
What
Yeah,
was Carolina's record this year?
5-11.
yep, 5 and
They
11.
could have been easily like a 10-6.
Yeah,
Or
or
10,
maybe
probably like
9-7.
10,
11-5.
6, 9, and 7. That's why I kind of seen myself being this year or previously this past season rather. But
Still didn't have an our O line was bad. Our
yeah,
D line was okay, but when Short got hurt again, that hurt.
yep,
At your linebacker, you had nothing at middle linebacker. That Whitehead guy, that's just like having me out there playing middle linebacker.
yeah, he was the biggest hype I ever seen that just went down the drain. Like he just faded during the season.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
was
only
trash. And Shaq Thompson has been rewarded year after year after year for being mediocre. He is not trash, but he is not great either. I do not.
yeah,
Does he win a
I can agree. I will agree with that. Now,
D-
out of all linebackers, they have
he
made him
he
like
he he shadowed under the two good
best.
ones. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. And every year it's like this is going to be the breakout year for Shaq Thompson.
Nope.
He has it to himself. Tom TD's gone. Luke Kuechly's gone. This is going to be every year. This is going to be the year that he takes that next step. I'm like, he been in the league since 2015. Now it's year 7. And if he ain't taking it yet, he ain't gonna take it.
No, I mean,
I think one of the greats, like I think honestly they should have picked up Stephon Anthony if anything while he was still a free agent. Well, I'm pretty sure he's still a free agent.
Well, yeah, he's still free agent. I'm biased when it comes to Stephon Anthony, and I'm going to be biased. I'm from Williamsburg, North Carolina, and I'm proud of it. I graduated from Anson Senior High School. I bleed blue and orange until they put me into the effing ground. So, yes, I'm biased towards Stephon Anthony. So, anytime, if anybody got anything bad to say about Stephon Anthony, I don't want to hear it because I'm from Williamsburg, North Carolina, and I'm proud of it. So there's that. I wouldn't mind having him. It's when Stephon Anthony secures his case to me, and then Stephon, if you listen to this is not a diss, man, because I'm a big fan of yours. He has all the tools in the world, and he's actually smart. I didn't like the way the Saints did him. I thought,
the Saints did him dirty.
Yeah, they did him dirty.
yeah, they threw him under the bus. I'm like, he had a up and down rookie campaign, but showed flashes. Had that game against Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, he was excellent. I don't know what's the obsession with making him a middle linebacker. I always thought that Stephon Anthony could play 3-4, be a 3-4 edge rusher type thing.
Yep.
I always where he has his straight line speed is perfect for getting in the backfield and disrupting plays. I don't know why they wanted to make him a middle. I didn't understand why Clemson tried to make him a middle linebacker, but I thought I thought that they could have played him an outside linebacker. They were hell bent on making him a middle linebacker. He wasn't that bad. He was actually, for a rookie, was solid his rookie year. They gave up on him too quick, threw him under the bus. down
They
there.
did.
He wasn't in Miami long enough, but in Miami, he went into camp as a starter, ended up losing the job. I can't defend that, but to the point where he's talented enough to be in the league. I mean, man ran a 4.53
Yeah.
out of Clemson. He was a first round draft pick. I still think that I wouldn't mind if the Panthers. He was on the Cardinals practice squad last year. I wouldn't mind if the Panthers brought him in there and maybe in camp, maybe at least have him on the roster, let him play special teams, and then who knows, maybe if he can get acclimated, he would play well. Or I wouldn't mind him being in a situation with someone who on a team that plays the 3-4. That look at Shaq Barrett, for example. Shaq Barrett, when he played in Arizona, whatever, he was considered a bum. He
Yep.
where he played, he was a late bloomer, but he gets to Tampa. And plays. They made him a 3-4 edge rusher. End up having 19.5 sacks one year, 8.5 last year, and was an integral part of that defense. Stephon's only 28 years old. I still have hope for him that maybe he can be on the roster where someone could play to his strengths, and that if there's an injury or opportunity calls, he can go out there, play well, and maybe have a resurrection. Because I still believe in the kid.
Yeah, I believe in it.
Yeah, to me, I just don't understand how teams are overlooking his talent. I'm baffled by that part. Like I said, his rookie year to me
He had a
was
good rookie year, honestly, to me.
like that. Like you said, that game where he got that fumble recovery and ran it in. I'm like,
That was against us.
yeah,
Carolina.
actually, yeah. I mean,
Stripped
Then
John
he got
Stewart.
the fumble recovery, and then he got to hit
He had a defensive
the
2-point
record
conversion
for.
in the same game. He was the
Yeah.
first player to ever score a defensive 2-point conversion in NFL history.
Yep.
That will never change. That's a record. So you kids out there listening, the first player to ever record a defensive 2-point conversion is Stephon Anthony, and he's from Anson Senior High School. Anson Senior High School's all-time interceptions leader, 20 interceptions in his career at Anson Senior High School. Take that to the bank.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Played under Coach Tim McMahon and Luke Hyatt.
Played under Coach Tim McMahon.
Yeah, Luke had him his junior and senior year though, but no, Luke. Yeah, I know.
We're not gonna go there.
I do. One day we got to do one of these podcasts about instant football or like high school football one of these days. Like
you know, I was definitely thinking about that like 2 days ago. I was like,
yeah, and what we need to do, we can invite Ralph Jackson, Coach Ralph Jackson, to, like maybe a week before season start to join us on an interview or something, and we could talk to him and field questions from him. He's very approachable. You know that because you've seen me talk to him. And Dr. Horn, I don't know if you've ever been on Facebook, but I have some where I've interviewed Ralph Jackson after football games and stuff. I got it on my page if you ever want to check it out. He's very approachable and easy to get along with.
Yeah, but yeah, we gotta make that happen. If we can get up, I know you got more. You can get in contact with him better than I probably could.
I mean, I got his number. What I'll do, when we get closer to the season, I just text him and send him, or I just send him the information. I promise, if he's not busy, he'll do it, man. Like one thing I give Ralph credit for, man, he's one of the nicest, humblest people you'll ever meet, man. As far as Ralph Jackson, the man, I have nothing bad to say about him. He's a man of high character, and he really does care about the kids, man. And man, he's trying, man. He's trying. He can't do it all by himself. He's trying.
Is this a rough year for considering all the pandemic and the?
How about this? I think this fall, I think this is going to have a very good team, and that's my gut feeling. As far as who they're playing, non-conference schedule has already been set. They're playing. Let's see. I don't know what order, but here are the games. I know they're playing Albemarle in a non-conference game. They're playing Mount Pleasant in a non-conference game. They're playing Piedmont in a non-conference game. They're playing.
Wait, Mount Pleasant not the conference now?
Yeah, Mount Pleasant's. I'll tell you what the conference is in a minute, but that's a non-conference game. So what did I say? So I said Albemarle, Piedmont, Mount Pleasant, and give me 1 second, because I'm trying to think how many conference games, how many teams in our conference. It's a 17 conference, I think. So yeah, and Pinecrest. So hold up, Albemarle, Mount Pleasant, Piedmont, and Pinecrest. That's our non-conference schedule.
And Pinecrest is pretty good this year, decent.
Yeah, I think we can play with them though. Because the thing about the difference between playing Pinecrest and playing Richmond County is that mental hurdle is not involved. Whereas when our kids play Richmond Senior High School, there's that mental thing where they overhype themselves, and there's that mental aspect, that mental blockage that we hadn't beaten them in so many years, and it's almost like it's a battle with ourselves versus a battle against them, and then we end up making a lot of mental errors, and then the game snowballs on us. Whereas against Pinecrest, they're not looking at the name in front of the jersey. That's just their opponent across the field. And I think they were into that with a different mindset. Just like when they played Lee County last year, that game went toe to toe, because it wasn't like a stigma that went with it. I think Pinecrest has a good football team, but I think we have athletes to play with. Just for us to be a 2A team, we have a lot more players than most 2A teams have. We usually still this past season we didn't have a lot of players because a lot of players weren't eligible to play and didn't show up during the for the spring season. But under normal circumstances, we carry 50+ players, which most 2A teams only carry about 30. So the thing about it, we're 2A, but we still have the same amount of players that most solid 3A teams have. So we still, I think we can compete with Pinecrest. I think in that we're going to do very well in our conference. This is who our conference is: Monroe, Parkwood, Central Academy of the Technology and Arts, West Stanley. Name some more schools around that way.
Is it South Stanley in there too?
No, they
Nah,
won
Forest Hills. Our league is going to be a split 3A, 2A league. Central Academy of the Technology and Arts will be 3A, and Parkwood will be 3A. And the 2A schools are Anson County, Monroe, West Stanley. Huh?
So it's like that. Well, that one, they had. Well, that I don't know if they still got it. There was one in Charlotte like that. It was the 4A, 3A.
Well, we used to be when we were in Southern Carolina. Like that. When we were in the conference Southern Carolina College, we were in a 4A, 3A league. We were 3A, but Sun Valley and Porter Ridge were 4A.
Okay.
Was that the same with Concord? Was in there with Concord as well?
No, that was just straight 3A.
That was straight 3A. Okay.
Yeah, that was after we left that league.
Well, just like Piedmont Conference, was it? Yeah,
South Piedmont. Just like Richmond County is going to be in a split league. In that conference are Richmond County, Hope County, Purnell Sweat. I think Sweat, and
not 71st. Jack Britt.
I don't know. I don't know if Britt gonna be in that conference or not. I'm not sure. But anyway,
Scotland
dropping down 3A, but they're gonna be in the same. They're gonna be in the split league though. So Scotland County, Lee County, and Southern League gonna be in the league. Those gonna be the 3A teams, and then the rest of the teams will be 40. Yep. So actually, Jackson tried to get Scotland for a game this year, but they already had the schedule filled. So I guess we end up with Pinecrest. So
that's pretty interesting to see. I just want to see. I know the quarterback thing was different.
The quarterback is probably going to be Logan Hyatt. So he'll be a sophomore when the season starts. Coach staff is really high on him. They're going to have him in the weight room, and they really like his decision making, and they're excited to see what he brings to the table.
Salute the all work no play, man. What's going on, bro? I'm excited to see. I'm just ready for football to start back. Period. Don't care what level it is. I'm just ready for it to start back.
Nick, I want to apologize. I know I've been throwing you off topic from where you wanted to go because when I get on my little rants and stuff, I kind of just go all over.
Bro, listen, this is what we're here for. We talk. We here. This is what we do. We're gonna talk about it.
Well, I don't want. I gotta let Dr. Horn 2000 talk a little bit, man. Because if you let me talk, I keep going and going.
No, you're good because you hitting good points. With that,
something. Since we're on high school football, I'm gonna tell you something that bugs me. When people try to evaluate high school football in the same vein as they evaluate NFL and college football, high school football is pretty easy to evaluate because the talent discrepancies are typically blatant where you can see it. Like, for example, from 2001 to like 2006 or whatever, I didn't care who was playing Independence. You weren't going to beat them, and you weren't going to come close. And that was just that. That
was the Tom Knotts era right there. So he got hand on whoever he wanted to play with him from Charlotte. That was a fact. I live here myself. So whenever I moved up here at that early age and knowing and working around still some high school kids, I was hearing stories like, yeah, man, he's from over there, way across town.
Yep. And while we're on Independence Tom Knotts, first of all, I want to definitely say prayers to the family of former Independence running back Cam Hennigan. He was an all-state running back won
Yeah.
won their leading rusher in 2005 when him and DJ McFadden won that state championship. Most people now know him for rapping and beef that he had with the baby, but I remember when he was an outstanding running back.
Yeah.
I don't have nothing to do with his beef with the baby, but it's still that was a father, that was a son, that was a brother, and a great athlete. So I'm saddened to hear about his death. He was a very special running back for those Independent Patriots teams. So God rest his soul.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely was a talented running back
They
in
had
high school.
they had a factory. I mean, it's
Yeah. Oh
funny because
yeah.
with those Independence teams, people all like, for example, on that 2000 through 2002, everybody talks about Chris Lee. Nothing against Chris Lee. Chris Lee is the greatest high school football player I
Joe
witnessed.
Cox.
But even before we even get into Cox, they had Mario Rayleigh, D1 receiver
Yep.
playing.
Yeah.
They
Really,
had
yeah.
running back Mario Crow, who's an all-world running back. They had that white guy middle linebacker. He was an all-state, all-American middle linebacker as well. That team, they had an all-world offensive line. The defensive line was nasty. They had that defensive end as well. They had it was a white guy that had playing defensive end. I can't think of his name. He was great too. That squad was lit. Then as soon as that group left, when Cox came in, Cox had in the backfield had Abdur Rahim Malik playing running back. He was a beast. Muhammad Massaquoi at receiver.
Yep.
Hakeem Nicks Hakeem Nicks didn't even play. He was a backup tight end on that 04 and 05 on that 04 team with Massaquoi. He couldn't. That team was so loaded. Hakeem Nicks didn't even see the field.
Yep.
That's how loaded that team was. Then when the next year when DJ McFadden took over, who played wide receiver at East Carolina as well, when he was playing quarterback there, that's when Nicks came along. So that lets you know how that team had a factory, man. And yes, it was. We could argue about how the team was assembled, but I'm just saying. But I didn't care who they were playing at that time. Just knew that you weren't going to beat them. At that
Well,
time,
technically, I
Well,
couldn't
that
argue
time
about the
they were
team.
like what top 3 in the nation those years, weren't they? They were pretty.
one of those years they finished second, and they finished second in the USA Today coaches poll.
Yeah.
They finished behind the South Lake Carroll, which is where
Yep.
Greg McElroy played. That would have been during the time McElroy would have been there too. That's when they finished behind them. But they won 109 games in a row, and they were like I said, that was a factory they had there with Knox.
And I can't
And
even, yeah, I can't even, and this is just me. I can't even say that, it's one county. So technically, it's like if we had a whole bunch of high schools, I mean, technically, that's before they did all this zoning. They could go to school about anywhere they wanted to over there.
yeah, they had school selection, but I mean, you had what it was. I live in Charlotte. They break it off where at that time you had like the zones where if you live in a certain place, you could pick between 4 different schools. You had your home school and then 3 other ones you could pick from. That later on. At first, it was just a free for all, but then when they first established that, but then they started changing it a little bit. And after that, you notice they started to drop off a little bit. They were still good, but they weren't. Butler got to catching up with them.
Yeah,
And,
Butler.
and that's when Butler started. When Christian LeMay left Porter Ridge and transferred to Butler, a lot of people forget that part. He played at Porter Ridge his first year. People forget Christian May played against us when he was at Porter Ridge, and we beat them 36-14. That's a fact. I was there and I saw.
That was what, 2007?
2007.
Okay.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And then he played at Butler in 08. And then he didn't. Then he played there 09. Then in 2010 he didn't play because there was something personal that happened where he ended up sitting out. So and which is I'm not gonna say anything bad about him. I don't know who's watching. His father's a pastor down in South Charlotte. So and his brother played running back for UNC Charlotte. So I have nothing against the LeMay family. But yeah. During that time when Butler started to get good, now speaking of that time, that Butler team was good, but even when Butler won the championship in 08, they still weren't on that level those Independence teams were. I
No.
will always the 2008 Anson County football team. People are going to think I'm crazy as hell for saying this. That offense that Anson had with 2008 could have played with anybody. I feel like if Butler and Anson County would have played a regular season game 2008, I'm not saying
Anson would have beat them.
No, I'm not saying we'd have beaten them, but the score would have been something like 38-34 or 41-35. It'd have been something like that. We'd have been able to score with them. I don't know if we'd been able to stop them, but I know we'd have been able to score with them. That offensive line, that offensive line had D1 talent on Anson's offensive line in 2008. And
yeah, that whole line was D1.
Even the playoff game that we lost to Kings Mountain in the third round, we lost the game 56-55 on a controversial failed 2-point conversion. That lets you know we can score with anybody. That year, Kannapolis went to the state championship game that year, and we dominated them in the regular season. We beat them. They ended up making the game close at the end, but that was a Kannapolis team that we gave the business to during the regular season. That same Kannapolis team went on to play in the state championship game that year. That lets you know how good that 08 Anson team was special. What happened? They got off to a slow start that year with injuries, but then when they got to clicking, McMahon had that team rolling.
Yeah, they did.
I always said this: if McMahon would have stayed one more year, Anson would have been 3 AA championship in 2009. Anson got to the regional final in 09, even with Hyatt coaching them. And
with Side Point.
Yeah, and Brandon Ellerby, I love you. You're a great guy. But Brandon Ellerby fumbled the ball 4 or 5 times in that game, and they didn't see it against South Point. And I love Brandon Ellerby. You're a great guy. So if you're listening, man, I love you. You're a great guy. I'm proud of what you did in North Carolina. I saw you in the bowl game against Cincinnati. You did some great things, man. I love your brother DJ Ellerby too. I used to see DJ at church sometimes. Great, the Ellerby family. I love you guys. You're great people. But like, dang, Brandon, you fumbled it. And the year before, Brandon also against Kings Mountain, he got burnt in coverage so many times in that game too on broken plays. And I love Brandon Ellerby, but I'm like, but those were 2 big games where there were some crucial errors on his part that cost us. And both of those years are teams that we probably could have won state championships with. But that's the way the ball bounces. It's unfortunate, but I always think that between that time, during the years we had Stephon Anthony, Brandon Ellerby, DJ Ellerby, and all that crowd, Jordan Hills was the quarterback, or Dennis Rory, far that goes. I thought between 07, 08, and 09, I thought one of those years we should have won a state championship. I thought we had that kind of talent.
What was the game that they lost? Was that a 3rd round game or 4th round game? That was a 3rd round game, but they lost at home in the playoff. I think that was like Matt McCann's 1st or 2nd year.
Yeah, that was the 1st year. We lost to North Gaston, a North Gaston team that went to the state championship game that had 2 D1 backs, AJ Blue and Princeton Brooks. That team was stacked. And we lost to them in the nail biter. That game went down to the wire. We were up 21-14 in 3rd quarter in that game, but we lost 28-21.
Was that a 3rd round game? Oh, that was 3rd round, wasn't it?
That was the 3rd round game.
Yeah.
We were the 2 seed, so that was the 3rd. We had 3rd round game home. And then the next week, North Gaston went to Asheville, beat Asheville 35-34, and then went on the state championship game. They got killed by Western Alamance.
Oh, Asheville. Anyway. So we're gonna jump on to the topic of what I wanted to start off today with. Did LeBron put his foot in his mouth?
He stepped in it first and then put it in his mouth.
Yeah, did he step in the poop and put his foot in his mouth?
Regarding what? Before I get into this,
the play-in situation.
No, but first of all, I agree with everything he said. The only thing that's weird about it is that you don't mention it until the Lakers are in danger of falling into that situation. But as far as the statement itself, the statement is true. I think it is stupid. I'm like, if you finish 10th in your conference, you shouldn't be rewarded by having an opportunity to play your way into the playoffs. You had, in this case, everyone's playing 72 games. Ordinarily, you play 82, but this year you're playing 72 games.
In a condensed schedule,
if you can't get to where you're supposed to get, whether it's my Lakers and Hornets or whoever else, if you can't get to where you're supposed to get to in 72 games to make playoffs, then dang it, you don't deserve a do-over at the end of the season to say, well, if you can beat this team here, we're going to let you in anyway. So you mean to tell me a team that can finish 7th in the conference can have a winning record, a team that finished 10th can have a losing record, but somebody can get hot in a little play-in where that team 10th can end up making it and that team 7th can end up not making it. I'm saying, what's the point of playing 72 games? Because the regular season is played out to determine who makes the postseason based on how many games they win. What's the point of having the regular season if you're gonna still determine who makes the playoffs on the last 2 seeds based on some tournament? So I agree with what he said. Maybe the timing of when he said it may have been an issue, but the thing about it, I'm glad he said it because he's so influential. The fact that he's against it, that lets us know they probably won't do that next year because when he speaks, they listen.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, now you want to speak upon it, but another time, if the Lakers were top 3, where they didn't have to worry about being on the cusp of looking in or looking out, don't speak then. But again, it's kind of a dumb implement they're doing this year. I think it's going to be unfair to an 8 seed team, of course, because because you a team that let's look at the Hornets for example. We're number 8, but and we battling injuries. Unfortunately, just how the cookie crumbles when it comes to this type of season itself. But we get in a situation where we could have made the playoffs and probably rested a little bit, but we had to play a play-in game, and we don't have 100% players. And like you said, that team could be hot, and we get eliminated because of circumstances that are unforeseen or uncontrollable, and put us in that position and make us have a worse seeding going into the draft. Well, not necessarily worse seeding, but not even the draft aspect. Let me just go back over that. Just in general, just puts us in a place where we out of the playoffs, but also not getting compensated for being a lottery pick.
Yeah. You're getting screwed. And the
Yeah.
thing, and the way it's formatted, the number 17 plays the number 18. If the number 18 beats the number 17, the number 18 becomes number 7, and then the loser of that game plays the winner of the 9-10 game. And the winner of that game gets the 8 seed, and the loser of that doesn't make it. So we would have to lose 2 games. So in other words, we're 8th now. So we beat who's 7 right now.
I think
Miami.
it's still
No, Miami's 6.
It's probably Boston. Is it Boston?
No, Boston. No, Boston 7. Miami 6.
Okay, so if it's okay, that's all I need to know. So if it started today, it would be where Charlotte would go to Boston and play Boston, and Washington would play Indiana. So, for example, if Charlotte beats Boston, Charlotte becomes number 7 seed. If Charlotte loses to Boston, Charlotte will play the loser of Washington. Will play the winner of Washington and Indiana. And if Charlotte win that game, Charlotte still is 8 seed. If Charlotte loses both games, that's when you're outside looking in. At that point, if they're in a situation like that, they lose both of those games, and tell Borrego to pack his ish and get out of here.
And then sometimes just need to leave well enough alone. I don't see why they need to put a 9 on a 10 in it. I mean, like you said, you got 72 games. If you can't get it done in them 72 games.
And I'm going to go on another rant. That dang on Adam Silver, he's been trying to turn this thing into Premier League soccer for the longest. Now, since people want to rip LeBron James, 2-3 years ago when they flirted with the idea before, back then he said it was dumb too, and that's why they held off on it after he was like, no. But Silver, he used this pandemic condensed year
experiment.
Yeah, to try to experiment with his little fantasy, and I hope it falls on his face. Remember, a couple of years ago, he was also wanting to do like a mid-season tournament during Christmas time for whatever reason. It's like he wants to do all of this. He wants to do all of these little soccer fantasies. He's a progressive, and I'm not trying to get into politics, but he's an overly liberal progressive. And I'm not knocking liberals because I'm registered as a Democrat, but I'm not really that liberal. He's an overly liberal progressive who's an appeaser, and anytime somebody cries about something, he changes the rules or changes things at the command of somebody's crying. I don't like Adam Silver. He keeps wanting to mess with the game, and like Nick said, when he could just leave well enough alone. And I'm about to say he's having his little fantasy right now, and hopefully it fails for him.
Hey, Adam Silver. We all got something. We got a lot to tell you, Adam Silver. But I'm gonna be the first one to tell you this.
Fuck you, and fuck you. Who's next?
That was funny.
But yeah, I think they need to be well enough alone, man. When you I feel like a team that got the 8. I mean, I get it's 8, but you grinded hard to get into that 8 spot. If you were below that. Now you got to jeopardize your 8 spot for a 10th spot that could possibly be 8, and a 9 that could possibly be your 7.
Well, Charlotte Hornets are trailing the Chicago Bulls by 12 as we speak at home in Charlotte. That's unacceptable.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking directly out. I'm outside now, looking at it. That's what I'm talking about. These games. Well, I mean, they're going through a lot of injuries, but I mean that's
part of the game.
It ain't that Cody missed layup.
So you can't have that. Like 50 Cent said, I've been ups and downs. I get around, but for me, it's all part of the game. That's all it is, man. Yeah. Everybody's interest, so it is what it is. You can't lose to the Bulls right now when you're battling for position.
Yeah,
Nah,
these are the games that you need. I
need
mean,
to
they
win.
got a 5-game homestand right now.
Against teams that are considered weaker teams too.
Yes.
In that 5-game homestand, you need to win all of those games. You already lost the game to Miami, but aside from that, you need to win. You need to win the remainder of those games in the stand.
Because the playoff is definitely around the corner.
Right,
Like,
and what you
literally.
want to do is try to get in a situation where you might could get to the 6th spot or something to get out of this whole
The
playing
play.
situation.
Yeah. That's why, I mean, I hope, like like I was saying, I hope Los Angeles stays positioned where they at now. Because we lost some unnecessary games.
Wide
Starting
open.
with,
Wide open.
yeah.
What I'm afraid of now, and I know the last time I was on here, I said Lakers are going to go to the finals. But what I'm afraid of now, I'm speaking of what James said. I'm not worried about what he said about the playing thing. What I don't like is when he came out and said, "I'll probably never be 100% again." To
That
me,
scared me too. I heard it too.
well, it
Now,
didn't scare me. To me, and when people want to compare to Michael Jordan or whatever, that's the type of stuff that makes me sick. A true competitor never. To me, it's like you're already getting your excuse ready. So just in case if you
Yep.
don't get to where you're supposed to get to, you're already putting out there. Well, I'm not 100%. I never will be again. So now, if for any
it's
future
like you're
failure,
not even trying to play.
yeah, for any future
He,
failure, you're trying to
he,
use that. Well, I was out there, but I wasn't myself. To me, and I know I'm because I like the Lakers, but one thing I've always never liked about him, I never felt that when people compare him to a Jordan, I never felt that he had the competitive spirit of a Jordan. I felt like
oh
he was
no.
always a person who made excuses and then would go out and get as much help as he could. Every championship he won, except the one last year, was on a super team. But when people try to, and I'm not saying that he's not one of the greatest, but when people try to argue that he's the greatest, I don't see how you can argue that he has too many big losses under his belt to say he's the greatest.
Yeah,
Just
I agree.
even
his record. Yeah. His record
he
alone.
he played on, and I'm not even talking about the losses to Golden State with Kevin Durant. I ain't even talking about those. Even he lost in the finals twice in Miami when he was on a super team. Lost to Dallas, who had nothing but Dirk Nowitzki. And they had no other All NBA players on that team besides Dirk Nowitzki that year. He was the only player that was an All NBA player on that team. They
That is
lost.
true.
They lost to the Spurs 2 years later, and at that time, the Spurs had 0 All NBA players. Tim
Yep.
Duncan was washed up. Kawhi Leonard, but he wasn't the Kawhi Leonard we know today. He was a role player at that time. Tony Parker was getting older. Ginobili was washed up. They had 0 All NBA players on that team that year, and they lost in 5 games to them. And I know they beat them the year before 7, but I don't want to hear it.
It's coming. I just got that feeling. I just think
It's coming. It is. It's coming.
Even
I agree.
even when he was in Cleveland the last year, they won 61 games. One of those years in Cleveland, they won 66 games. People say we didn't have no help. I'm like, they were good enough to win 66 games with Mo Williams and all those guys. I don't want to hear that either. They won 66 games, had the best record in the league by far, and lost in the conference finals to the Orlando Magic. And that Orlando Magic was no more loaded than that Cleveland team. They had Dwight Howard, who people laugh at now like he might have been a bum, even though he was an 8-time All-Star and 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. They had Dwight Howard, and besides that, the second best player on that team was Rashard Lewis because Jameer Nielsen was hurt, and they had Rafer Alston playing point guard. They had an N1 guy, an N1 street baller playing point guard. And their second best player, they had Rashard Lewis and Vito Turkoglu. And Orlando beat them. So I don't want to hear it.
And the year that he went to the finals in Cleveland the first time when they won like 60-something games when they got swept by the Spurs.
I don't hold that against him. He was a 24-year-old guy. They had on that one. I can't be hard on them. Yeah. They had no business even in the finals that year. They beat Detroit, upset them, and they got there.
Yep.
I like to be fair about it. That one I'm not putting on him.
Yeah, Detroit was kind of a shocker that lost to them. I'll say that year.
When they got swept by the Spurs, they weren't even supposed to even be there. So I'm not even going to put that on them.
I feel like I'm a counter because I mean you got there. I'm a counter. I don't know if he was an MVP. Well, I don't know if he was MVP. He was MVP that year.
That team had no business even in the playoffs, more or less in the finals. So I'm gonna the fact that he got that team to the finals is actually I put that on his side. And but even without that, there's enough there to where you can say you can't call him the greatest ever. You might say he's the most talented player to ever play the game, but say that he's the greatest player to ever play. You might say he's the most skilled player to ever play the game, but say the greatest. I cannot say that. He's played on loaded teams and when he's won championships. I mean, loaded teams, and it always and then always complaining about don't have enough help. I'm like, okay.
And in
I
the
think he
era,
was the year that he was
the
getting
way
everybody in Cleveland.
is when the GOAT actually played too. I still think it's imagine him playing in the '90s. I'm not saying he would get he could he definitely would be a good player in the '90s because of his size and physicality, but he wouldn't be able to take that mental strain like those guys did back then. Like Joe, like I said,
Well, back then they could throw you on the ground. Even those Knicks teams and stuff. Those Knicks teams will try to rough him up.
They're the kid LeBron. The
Charles
Knicks,
Oakley, Charles
Pacers.
Oakley. Dennis
Yeah.
Rodman would get him thrown out of a game.
yep,
Him and Alonzo Mourning, they were when they played Miami. Alonzo Mourning, they would rough him up, throw him to the ground. Indiana, Reggie Miller's a dirty player. He would have kicked him in the nuts or something, and people like Dale Davis and stuff would have thrown out the game. So I mean, the way they would have played him. You remember early in his career when they used to play the Wizards when the Cavaliers and the Wizards were always playing the first round of Brendan Haywood and they were throwing him on the ground and stuff. They would have tried to play him that way. Because that's what the Wizards were doing. They were trying to do like Detroit, do Jordan, just throw him on the ground every time he came in the hole. And then I remember that time he went to whine, they trying to hurt me. And Brendan Haywood was like, man, you're supposed to be the best player in the world. You crying about us trying to hurt you.
yep.
And he's a great player. Greatest small forward to ever play the game. I take nothing away from him. But when you're talking about the greatest of all time,
I can't say that.
I can't say it, and mainly because he doesn't have the competitive spirit and to be the greatest of all time.
No, he doesn't. And it's not taking nothing away from what he's. People just hyping him up like there's no such thing as Jordan. There's no such thing as Kareem. Like, oh, is LeBron or nothing? Nah, I can't. It's only Kobe.
It's his fans and Sean Wheeler. I love you, buddy. You're a great guy. You're a great guy. My classmate. You're a great family man. You appear to be a great husband, great father to your children, hard-working man. I'm proud of you, dude. I mean, you turned out to be a good dude, man, and I have nothing but good things to say about you as a human being. One of my favorite people to see when I go to Anson games. But my goodness, man, the way you ride this man, just like you might be on his payroll. I'm like, it's like it's almost like AEW wrestling fans. Like fans of AEW have seen no wrong in AEW. It's the same thing with Sean when it comes to LeBron James. It's like LeBron James could take a crap in the middle of his yard and he'll say that's the greatest crap he's ever seen in his yard.
I guess
and then we'll say that Jordan, when he dropped the crap in the yard, it was much smaller, so that makes LeBron the greatest. I'm like, okay, you can still like someone and have admiration for someone and still point out that, like, I play this guy. So everybody know I'm one of the biggest Kobe fans that ever walked this ground, but I still can admit that in the 2004 NBA Finals, Kobe Bryant got outplayed by Rip Hamilton. That happened.
Yeah, that definitely happened.
Fan as I was Kobe Bryant, we lost that final series, and he had a lot to do with it because he was awful in that final series, and he let Rip Hamilton outplay him. That doesn't mean that he wasn't great. That doesn't mean that doesn't take away from how great he is and how I feel about him. But I can still acknowledge that happened. Like a guy like Sean won't, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but when I say a guy like Sean's a great guy. But like, for example, he won't acknowledge that James got outplayed by Jason Terry in the 2011 NBA Finals. He'll never admit.
He did. He definitely did.
He'll never admit that. No, just like this is before my time, and Horn, I don't know how old you are, but people say 1984, the Tragic Johnson series, where Magic Johnson completely got outplayed by Bird in 1984 Finals and went out there and blew that Game 7 against the Celtics. That doesn't mean Magic is still the greatest point guard of all time, but that still happened under his watch. Yeah. He still got outplayed in that situation. Even the great players, you can still say that this happened. There were times when Jordan, when he was falling short against the Pistons and stuff, you could argue that he wasn't getting it done, whatever the case may be. Still, you can acknowledge that this is my favorite player, but in this particular situation, he wasn't at his best. Even when to go back to football with Newton, I'll acknowledge, like, hey, sometimes Newton can be up and down. Like when he when things are not going well, he lets the game avalanche on him. If he gets off to a bad start, sometimes he'll let it stick with him the whole game. I'll admit that. But at the same time, it's like Sean won't ever admit any kind of flaw with LeBron James. It's just like you got God, you got Jesus Christ, and then you got LeBron James.
I will go back to that the Detroit final. Yeah, Kobe didn't play good. Also, I think they really underestimated that team when they got there. I will say that, and I'm gonna stick to that belief because I feel like that
They were
Lakers
well
team
rounded.
definitely beat that Detroit team.
Yeah,
Hands down.
I thought the Lakers had a better talented team. Something else that a lot of people leave out, but I don't like to make excuses. When Karl Malone banged up his knee again, they had Slava Medvedinko playing power forward. That was just like like playing 4-on-5.
Yeah,
And Chauncey Billups killed them in the pick and roll. He killed Derek Fisher, and he killed Gary Payton too in the pick and roll. And that we didn't. And Shaq played great offensively and on the boards in the series, but Shaq always been bad at showing on pick and roll. And then the thing about it, you had a 6'11" guy like Wallace there. Now I'm talking Rasheed Wallace, not Ben. Where you're not gonna leave Shaq not leaving the paint. You got Wallace standing out there shooting threes and stuff. Somebody got to go out there and guard him. And then and that's kind of. And then even when they came off the bench, you had guys like Eldon Campbell. Even then, he's got to shoot from outside. You had Mehmet Okur who could shoot from outside. They had versatile bigs that where you had that could draw Shaq away from the paint. And then on the pick, he wasn't going to show on those pick and rolls anyway. And even if he did show on the pick and roll, you got a wide open Rasheed Wallace standing in the corner who could knock those threes down. Whereas traditionally NBA centers at that time, you didn't have 6'11" guys knocking down threes like that. So, but still, at the end of the day, when you had a guy like Kobe Bryant who's in his prime at that time, he let Tayshaun Prince get him out of his game, and I never would have thought that he would let Tayshaun Prince. When I say I'll play Rip, I like Rip had an excellent series, and Kobe was guarding Rip a lot of that time, and I think a lot of by Rip has that Reggie Miller style where he runs. Rip is always running. He's always running off the screens. He made Kobe Bryant chase him on screens all night long, and I think that was tiring him out too. And then on the flip side, you got that long arm Tayshaun Prince, who's an excellent defender, who's guarding him. And I think they got him frustrated, got him out of his element, and forced him to be just a jump shooter. That was a great defense team. They got physical with the Lakers. Ben Wallace was great on the glass, got physical with them as well. It was a series where I think that any other time Lakers would have won that series, but it doesn't matter. They didn't win it then. And I thought that you got an all-NBA guard back there, and I thought in that series he wasn't at where you needed him to be. And that's my take on it. I hope, and as he looks down on me right now, he's my favorite player to ever play the game. My personal favorite. But I call a spade a spade. And a lot of people, when you're evaluating guys, you have to take your bias out of it. And that's where I always say with Sean, and again, Sean, I love you, buddy. He doesn't take his bias out of it when he evaluates LeBron James. And it's not just Sean. LeBron got a lot of fans like that. My good friend Freddie Dean, I love you, buddy. But the same way. It's like you evaluate him based on your affinity for him versus what you see.
Yeah, I guess Gary Payton could tire him out.
Gary Payton wasn't a natural fit for what the Lakers were doing offensively because Gary Payton is more of in his heyday, more of a old school get down in the paint kind of guard. Whereas with Phil Jackson's offense, the point guard primarily is just a knockdown 3-point shooter.
Yep.
Yeah.
The point guard barely, and on Phil Jackson's offense, the point guard barely has the ball in his hand. The point guard is basically a spot up guy. You're basically in Phil Jackson's offense. Lots of times, primarily the small forward is the one handling the ball.
Yep.
Because the small forward is usually handling that ball and usually playing from the elbow. Because a lot of people don't understand triangle. It's actually not that hard to understand because it's usually somebody who posts Kobe up at the top of the elbow. You got the center down there. You got one of the other forwards on the other side of the key, and it's just motioning from. It's just you're basically forming from the key and just motioning. And
it can be moved. You can use it multiple ways.
Yeah, and lots of times you have guards and stuff cutting from the back end of it, and like if you got somebody at the elbow, he could backdoor. Or if Shaq caught it near the elbow or something like that, he could back down and then backdoor it to a cutting guard or something like that. Or like when you run like that baseline sideline triangle, you definitely run that when you got Shaq at the apex of it, backed up in the key. You got a guard one corner, and then at the shoulder of the 3-point arc, you got another guard or forward, whatever, and you could post him up where he could either kick it out to one of those guards, or the guards at the corner could backdoor and he could dump it off. There are multiple things you can do with it, but the point guard is not the primary ball handler in that offense. So a guy like Gary Payton, who always had to have the ball in his hand, it wasn't a natural fit. Whereas a guy like Gary Payton was just a spot-up shooter. It worked well for him. Like I'll tell you, in modern day game, and a point guard who would thrive in Phil Jackson's offense is George Hill. George Hill is the perfect triangle point guard.
Yep, that's all he wants to do is spot up. That's his game right there.
If Phil Jackson was still coaching, and let's say you had a Giannis Antetokounmpo, which George Hill played with Giannis last year, but and let's say you had let's say if you had a 2-guard that could really play. I ain't talking about Middleton, I'm talking about a real 2-guard. Let's say like Donovan Mitchell or somebody. I'm just using that. And you had those guys slashing, and you got Giannis posting up and playing up front, and got Mitchell as an ISO guy. George Hill would be perfect just to stand at top of the key and knock down threes for you.
Exactly, he definitely will be.
But George Hill not a good ball handler either. That's what I'm saying. But he wouldn't have to be in that offense. But George Hill reminds me a lot of he's right-handed, but he reminds me a lot of a Derek Fisher, except he's right-handed.
Yep.
Great defender.
I'm just ready to see how this play-in crap's gonna go though. Like
I think Charlotte's gonna get in. I think Charlotte's gonna catch some breaks in some of the playing games. If they just play well at all, I think they'll get breaks because I think the league LaMelo Ball's a ticket seller. He's good for TV. I think they want him in the playoffs. So if we don't get in, it'll be by our own doing. It's just like last year with the Pelicans. If the league wanted the Pelicans to get in, they just didn't get it done. They wanted Zion in the playoffs, but the team just didn't get it done.
Yeah,
like they ain't getting it done this year. They are in contention for the play-in.
Like by the skin of the teeth, maybe.
Yeah, they are. They on the cusp of the. I think the 10th, maybe.
Yeah, like by the skin of the teeth. Yeah. I mean, they got a shot, and they're gonna try to get them in if they can.
Here's another hot take. I was watching the I don't know if y'all watched All the Smoke, but I definitely watched All the Smoke podcast. Well, the TV show with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes.
That podcast, Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and I was looking at the one with Jeannie Buss where she was naming the all-time Lakers. And it was
Shaq off.
Yeah, she left Shaq off.
And that's shameful. Hopefully that was just an oversight, because that's shameful.
That was shameful. She put LeBron up there, and he hadn't played, and he ain't been there, like Shaq said, 700 days. And you put him on there before me. No hard feelings.
Shaq, first of all, Shaq won 3 Finals MVPs and a league MVP with the Lakers, and made 8 All-Star, played there 8 years. So you're talking about, and got to the Finals 4 times while Shaq was there.
Right.
And like won league MVP and won 3 Finals MVPs. With Shaq there, you won 3 championships in a row, and he was the MVP of all 3 of those championships, including the league MVP in that first one. At the time before Shaq got there, they were kind of middling and mediocrity. And then when you brought him in and acquired Kobe Bryant draft night, and as he developed, they became the most dominant duo in the game. And let's be clear, they won those championships. Kobe was great, but the Shaq's dominance is what put them over.
I mean, Shaq was just unreal. You never seen the power that. I mean, once if you got that ball inside, you wasn't stopping him, man.
And what people don't realize, not only and here's a misconception. A lot of people think it was just only brute force. Not only did he have brute force, he had a balance of brute force with great footwork and choreograph.
Yep. I mean, it just wasn't just a stop, turn around. I mean, he had moves just like Hakeem. I mean, I know what you mean. Yeah, it just the way it wasn't expected. I mean, he wasn't sitting there just turning around to try to shoot. He definitely, if he got caught, if he got double teamed or whatever, he uses footwork to get him out of that situation where he can still put himself in a good position to score.
Great passing, big man too. That year he won MVP. He led all centers in assists.
Yes, I mean he definitely was he saw the court too, so he definitely saw a lot of you know plays from his position where he knew he drew a lot of attention and he could just pass it out and look for the open guy. So
Yeah, he made everyone better. Offensively, he was a very, very good shot blocker too, but was a dominant offensive player, the most dominant player in the game. And I wish these kids that saw him tell him in his career they didn't get to see him in his heyday. I wish that somebody like 24, 25 years old who saw him at the end of his career, I wish they could go back and watch some of the tape of when he was with the Lakers in his heyday and see like when sometimes he would catch that ball at the elbow, put the ball on the floor, do a drop step, do it up and under, and dunk it in like that. I've seen him do that.
I mean, you don't like with me. I'm 39, so I saw when he first got drafted with Alonzo and when he went to Orlando. So I mean, even in Orlando, I saw his dominance, but when he went to the Lakers, that was a whole nother stretch where he put on the court. I mean, he took his game to another level with the Lakers. I mean, like you said, just how his moves and how he scored.
Yeah, if he caught that ball, for anybody who's under 25 years old, anybody who's under 28 years old, when you watch this, go back and watch the series against the New Jersey Nets in the 2002 NBA Finals.
Yep.
And you'll see it. And if you want to see pure dominance, or go back and watch 2001 Finals against Philadelphia 76ers against one of the greatest defenders of all time, Dikembe Mutombo, and he was still dominant. Yep. Or if you want to, go back and watch the 2000 NBA Finals against Rick Smits, who was a fringe all-star center, and watch how he dominated. Pick whatever one you want to choose. Or you could go watch the 2001 Western Conference Finals when they swept the San Antonio Spurs. How he dominated David Robinson. Whatever you want to watch.
By far, in this era, from the 80s to now, I mean, of course, you have Wilt and those guys back then, but by far, in the last 30 years, he's the best playing center I've seen. Like this,
he's the last
big
great
man
center that we had, and that's why it's refreshing to see Embiid and Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. Finally see two centers who can dominate. Maybe not in the same point guard, but still. But I'm talking about, but still can dominate and impact the game. Because after Shaquille O'Neal, there was a collective effort to fade the center position out of the game. Yep. They even in the All-Star battles, and they quit putting center on there, and they put front court player. They've been doing everything they can to phase the center position out of the game. But thank you, Joel Embiid, thank you, Nikola Jokic, for saving the center position.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't run center; they just run with forwards now.
They go small ball because they want to speed the game up. And shooting.
And for that stuff, and people want to give Golden State credit for that, but their true credit goes to Mike D'Antoni and the Phoenix Suns. They just didn't win championship doing it. And Golden State won a championship doing it because they played great defense and they got two great shooters that ever played the game. But Mike D'Antoni, when they started playing Amari Stoudemire at center and had Sean Marion playing power forward, that's when Mike D'Antoni and the Phoenix Suns are the ones that started that mess.
Yep, that's true.
But and I don't like Mike D'Antoni. I can't stand that. So be frank about it. But still like credit's due.
Mike D'Antoni.
I don't like him. I don't like him one bit. I didn't like him when he coached the Suns. So I know he coached the Lakers for he had a cup of coffee with the Lakers, but I didn't like him then just because of when he was with the Suns. So I mean, I don't like Mike D'Antoni. I don't like Steve Nash, but I'm not even gonna get into all that.
Yeah, Mike D'Antoni, he's a guy that they give too much praise to, because they try to make it seem like he's an offensive guru when he really not. I mean, anybody can just speed up the offense, and if you got the right players, you can score. But defense, that's why Houston is in the position they are in now, because of how he did their team. Just trying to put the offense just only around Harden.
Mm-hmm.
And when they effed up when they traded Clint Capella, that's where they went south.
Yep. And that's And I was like,
we had a rebounding machine, double machine at that. Easily.
Yeah, so when that happened, that did him in. But
I know we were a little off subject and talk about the Hornets. I guess you're a Lakers fan, but you follow the Hornets.
I root for the Hornets too, and I see we're down by 20 points against the Bulls at home.
Yeah, that's man. But what would be the best move you think for the Hornets in the offseason?
Like as far as player or coach or what?
This I would say player wise, what we
What
need.
this? Okay, I'm gonna tell you what I'll do. First of all, and this is not, and this is a player that I think has been very good for us. So this is not me saying he's the problem, but I'm
Yeah.
saying that he's the asset that can get us something. I'll say during my number one priority in the offseason, I'll field calls for Terry Rozier. Somebody give up too much for him. I think this might be a one-off season. The fact that he's having a great year, you don't really need him because you already loaded at guard. You got a surplus at guard. I might either him or Graham or both. I will see what I can package to see what I can get up front. Like for example, if a Miles Turner or something. I'm not saying necessarily him, but I'm saying a player like that. Or if an Andre Drummond or something is well, he'll be a free agent anyway. But let's say if he wasn't a free agent, a player like that, I would swing that. I'm talking about for what we because we need somebody up front that's that's sustainable. We have nothing up front. Hold on, let me put my phone up to you. But we have nothing up front. Because we try to be small too, and I like Bridges and Washington and all that. I'm not knocking those guys. Still keep them in the rotation, but you need someone up front, even if they're not scoring, someone to keep people from riding up in the paint. You got to have even if it's I'm not saying Nerlens Noel, but at least someone who can do what he does. Someone who keep people from going up in the paint. At some point, you got a Terry Rozier, you got Devontae Graham, you got so many guards anyway. I would send some of those guards off to get an effective player up front, whoever that may be. I'm trying to think of a very good front court player that's available. That you might that's reasonable to acquire, but you got it because Ball is going to even get better. I think he's going to emerge into a major star. Assuming Hayward not get hurt again, which is a big lot to bet on. That might be another person that you might say that hey, I can get something back for. But I would say Rozier because I think you can get something back for Rozier because people are always looking for guards.
Oh yeah, certain teams, especially these contenders, I would say.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a player on a team that's a contending team. Let's say like a team like I'm trying to think like a Philadelphia or something.
Exactly.
I might call them up and say, hey, you want do you want Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham for Tobias Harris? I'm just using that as an example. Like you want to do business on that. Or like I'm trying to think of something else. Or another deal I would think of doing. I know this guy's about 35 years old, but they're looking to get rid of him, and he's still effective. And he's a vet. They need a veteran leader to help this team. Let's say you swing a deal like give up Cody Zeller and Bismack Biyombo, and throw in. And I'm trying to think of what else you can throw in there, and maybe a second round draft pick, and say, give me Al Horford.
Yep. I think that'd be a quality guy that you can stick in the middle.
Yeah. So, and then let's say you throw the Al Horford deal in there, and then like call the Lakers up again because they did this before, and say, "I'll give you Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham for Montrezl Harrell."
Yep.
I'm just saying that's the type thing that you can do. I think that those are the type deals that can instantly make you better. Or let's say since you call up the Milwaukee Bucks and say, "Hey, I'll give you Gordie Hayward and Cody Zeller if you give me Chris Middleton and PJ Washington, not PJ Washington, the guy who's played for the Rockets."
Tucker.
Yeah. I'm just using that as an example. If you give me that, I think those are the type moves you that you're looking at. Those are realistic moves, and I think that you can make some hay off of.
I want to see Charlotte get that, like, be in that contender spot for the East in a few years. I want to see them be like that name.
Well,
they got the pieces. They got the young pieces. Let me say that. I would say I agree. I'm agreeing with you. They have the young pieces. I mean, the problem with us, we just don't have that cornerstone center that can protect the paint. Cody, I mean, I think he's a good bench. Not gonna say bench player, but he's a good role player off the bench. But he's not a starter. Bismack is what he is. He's just a hustle player off the bench. He can get you the rebounds, kill some minutes until the starter come back in. But he's not a player that you rely on for points and consistent scoring, or consistent rebounding and block shots. He can come in there and have an effective game. The next game, he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, the team's biggest problem, they don't have a defensive presence. They can score. They just don't have a defensive presence at all. And it's one of those things where LaMelo Ball, if he stays healthy, I think you got to play that could be a superstar guy who can be a Magic Johnson type player if you keep him healthy. So I think as long as he's there, you'll be able to get people to want to play here because you got him. When you got a point guard to get guys some of these, but you got great athletes in Miles Bridges and PJ Washington. You got stuff to work. Even if you got to trade one of them, you have players that other people will want to where you can get what you want.
Oh yeah.
I want to see them. Like I said, they get those pieces that they actually need to put the puzzle and take over the East.
So what?
I would definitely like to see that.
Yeah.
And I got that weird feeling that they're gonna end up trying to get his brother in Charlotte.
I don't know.
I
don't
just
think
got
so.
that weird. I feel like they are.
Why? I'm about to say because he can't play two guard.
Nah, he can't play two guard, but I just got that weird feeling. Jordan want to make a little money. Let's get the ball.
Lonzo Ball has to be a point guard. He can't play off the ball. Lonzo Ball is not effective off the ball because he's not a good enough shooter. Lonzo Ball is more like Jason Kidd. I'm talking about in that same vein where just like you can't play Jason Kidd at two guard because he's not aggressive enough offensively to be a two guard. It's not like he's a knockdown shooter, and it's not like he's just great penetrator to the basket, aggressive scoring type guy either. He's a passive. He's too passive to be a two guard. So
I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, I agree with everything you're saying. Like, I 100% agree with it. But you know how the politics side of things, when it comes to getting dollars, they're gonna want to see the Ball brothers play together for some odd reason.
I don't even think. I think that they're too competitive against each other for that. I don't think Alonzo going to stay in New Orleans, but I can see him maybe with the Knicks or somebody like that. I can see that. Yeah. Alonzo's a good defender too, so and with Thibodeau, he like those gritty type players.
So who's their point guard now? I'm trying to think who they're running that point guard in New York.
Derrick Rose is on the team.
Been balling out lately.
But he's coming off the bench, if I ain't mistaken, right? Is he?
Yeah, so I don't know who the starting point guard is for the Knicks.
He coming off the bench, but he been balling his butt off for the game.
He's still having a good, solid game off the bench. New York might be the team that he needs to go to.
I just hate that his career went the way that it went. The injuries and because I like Rose.
Yeah. And it all started, and what somebody gonna tear themselves over with this condensed season that we got now. Anytime you're playing a condensed schedule, that's what happens. Yep. They were playing back to backs, like 3 games consecutive nights that year. Right, during the first game of the playoff series, a non-contact injury, and so he had already been out with injury anyway, and he came back, and people were like, "Why was he in the game?" People kept. I was like, "Nobody touched him, idiots." That means that was going to happen anyway. People were like, "Why is he in the game? They're up by 11 with a minute and something left." I'm like, nobody touched him. So it's not like he was in the game and somebody hit him or something when he should have been in there. That means that would have happened even in practice. Nobody touched him and his knee just gave out. That was like
he could have walked back to the locker room and that could have happened to him.
Right. Yeah. So it's not right. It was a not. That was so stupid when people kept saying, "Guess why did they have him in the game?" I'm like, well, why not have him in the game? Number two, it's not like somebody hit him. Yeah, he was just dribbling the ball.
Like he could control it. It was a non-contact injury.
Right. So that means the next time he would try to make a cut, his knee was going to blow out anyway, whether he was in practice or whatever. I mean,
the monster just gave out. It just point blank period, like you said, when it's condensed, like
His
Stress on your body.
here's the irony. His career reminds me of the career of Penny Hardaway, and they both played at Memphis. And I'm like, and both of them are all NBA guards, and both of their careers were marred, but they both came in the league as superstars, and their careers ended up being marred by
injury.
knee injury after knee injury. And Penny Hardaway and Derrick Rose kind of had the same path.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I just said it. Now it just hit me diamond on me like that. Like, damn, they did. He did play at Memphis too.
Yeah, because Penny Hardaway could have been one of the greatest point guards to ever play the game. He was compared to Magic Johnson when he came in the league too. 6'7" point guard out of Memphis State, which is now the University of Memphis. He was an All NBA guard, and Derrick Rose All NBA guard, league MVP at that, and injuries did him in.
Yeah, they affected the game in all facets. With assists, scoring, make it just pretty much do it all on the court. So
yeah, Hardaway was more flashy, whereas Rose was more gritty.
Rose a dog, man. He'll take that ball to the hole like he was freaking. You thought LeBron took it to the hole. D Rose takes it to the hole.
Yeah, Rose had that old '90s Knicks versus Heat style to him, like that Pat Riley type gritty type grind, like that Memphis Grizzlies grindhouse type thing. That's kind of how Rose's style was, whereas Penny Hardaway was a guy that should have been playing for the Lakers, like Showtime, flashy, like watch him do a sick crossover with a fancy pass behind his back. That was kind of Penny Hardaway's game. So they're different type players, but they suffer similar trajectories.
Yeah. So staying on that with that Penny, being he was in Orlando with Shaq, if I'm not mistaken. If injury would have never affected Penny, what would you think that they could have had a run? Him and Shaq, maybe.
Well, Shaq, I think, was gonna leave anyway, so Shaq ended up leaving, and that's when his knees went bad. So after Shaq got going, so I don't know, because then he got to have a knee injury. Even the last year he made All-Star, he didn't have no business making All-Star. He just made it because of his name, because he was out most of that year too. The year Jordan won that last championship. I don't know. I doubt it, because if he kept getting injured, you said if injury wasn't there. I believe when Shaq left Orlando, their championship hopes were done. I didn't give a damn who they had playing point guard there.
That's true.
No, first of all, they weren't going to beat the Bulls during some of that time. No, I know they beat them one time. Another year Jordan came back late in the season. They beat them that one time. They weren't going to beat them no damn more.
Yeah.
Nah.
When they didn't beat the Houston Rockets, oh well.
Houston went back to back with the
but the Houston Rockets, they were on that last one. They were the 6th seed. They're the lowest seeded team to ever win the championship. They were the 6th seed. They went 47-35. Was the 6th seed. I'm gonna do like LeBron. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. They were the 6th seed and went on to win an NBA championship.
And the Knicks were like 1 or 2, wasn't it? I think it was.
Well, they beat Orlando. Was 1 seed. They beat Orlando that second championship.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the Knicks.
They beat the Rockets. Beat the Knicks in '94 for championship.
Yeah.
Knicks were like the 1 seed. I think they beat.
I think it was the 1 seed because they beat the Bulls in the semis. Or
they beat Bulls in the second round. They beat Indiana in the conference finals.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was when one of them games where Reggie Miller had 8 points in 8 seconds type thing.
Was that the infamous choke game?
Yeah, I mean, is that serious? But the Knicks went when he choked Spike Lee. But the Knicks went on to win that series.
The Spike Lee choke.
Yeah. Because the Knicks beat the Pacers, and the Rockets, I think, beat the Suns. I think they beat
the Charles Barkley Suns. Yeah,
because the Suns were looking to go back to the finals for back-to-back years.
Yep.
The disrespect that Charles Barkley gets. I'm about to say Charles Barkley is one of the greatest players to ever play the game, one of the greatest power forwards to ever play the game, a 6'4" power forward who won the league MVP. People forget he was a league MVP and took the Phoenix Suns to the finals and took them to multiple conference finals. But people try to act like he was just like he might have been DeMarcus Cousins or something. But that's another story for another day. They beat, and the thing crazy about it, the Phoenix had a 3-1 lead over over Houston in that series, and Houston came back. Have you ever heard of the kiss of death in that Game 7 when Mario Ellie hit the shot to seal it? He blew a kiss to the crowd, and that was called. So for you young kids out there, go on YouTube and search Mario Ellie "Kiss of Death" and you'll see it.
Yeah, that was sick. That was.
And if you don't know who Mario Ellie is, kids, whatever, just Google.
Yeah.
He also won a championship with San Antonio Spurs as well as starting two guard in 1999. But anyway, so kids, look up Mario Ellie.
I was more like Houston was just one of those teams that was like, oh well, we just gonna win these championships while Jordan ain't here.
But here's the thing. Here's my flaw: that the second one they won, Jordan was there. They lost to Orlando. Yes, he came late in the season, but my point, they still won a playoff series before they got to Orlando. They beat Charlotte in the first round, and then Jordan played 17 regular season games, and then they played 4 games against Charlotte. So that's 21 games that he'd gotten in before the series against Orlando. They lost Orlando in 6. So I mean, he got to play 27 games. When it was all said and done, he was there. They just didn't get to the finals. So, and at the end of the day, whether he was there or not, there were 28 other NBA teams who had the same opportunity that they had. They didn't get it done.
Yeah, that's true.
And now, I say you can't. And if somebody's retired, you can't say it's like they were injured and they came back. If someone's retired, that's just like saying if Tom Brady retired right now and somebody wins the Super Bowl next year, you can't say, oh, they won it without Brady because Brady won't play. And I'm like, well, once he retires, any Super Bowl doesn't want to be won without him playing. So, I mean, that's the way the game goes.
Yeah.
I don't see him retiring no time soon, but
he got to retire at some point. He either going to retire or somebody's going to retire him.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's the thing of my fear because I feel like
somebody going to hit him for the hell of it.
Somebody going to do it for spite.
Somebody going to take a 15-yard penalty in an ejection and throw their middle finger up and say, yeah, I did it.
It's probably going to be a New Orleans player. I got the high hopes in New Orleans. Probably
or anybody. You're gonna have does Vontaze Burfict still play?
No, he's been banned.
He been banned from the league?
Yeah, I think he got banned.
That last suspension he did, what he do? He did something. I think he pretty much did.
The Raiders,
yeah.
He hit somebody, but it wasn't like the Antonio Brown hit. He did come across, but it wasn't malicious. It was like one of those things like, oh, I'm finna hit you, but I can't really stop because I'm like right here in front of you. So you're gonna have to take
a guy like Vontaze Burfict or a guy like DJ Swearinger, like if he blitzing or something like that. I don't even know if he's still playing, but if by the way, if DJ Swearinger played during the 90s, he'd have been an All-Pro. DJ Swearinger came in the wrong era. He played safety like they used to play it. But if a guy like DJ Swearinger or something back in the backfield, a guy like that would just knock him out for the hell of it. And to get thrown out and say, yeah, I did it. One of them dirty players like that who just don't care. Mike Mitchell or somebody like that, one of them dirty players who don't care. Hit him because he keep playing with that little arrogant SOB. Keep playing with Father Time, and somebody gonna retire.
Yep, he's on borrowed time. I'm telling you that right now.
He's an injured left tackle away from getting retired.
I can agree.
If Cam Jordan come, they play like when they play in the Saints. If Cam Jordan come off that edge unblocked, they're gonna choke.
He's gonna hurt him. He's gonna hurt him.
They're gonna Alex Smith him.
Oh no, let's look at Alex Smith. That's a little bit gruesome.
Well, Joe Theismann was just as gruesome.
You got to throw the
I don't know. Did Joe Theismann have a leg about to get his leg amputated too?
No, but his one leg is still shorter than the other one.
Yeah, I did a normal on him that game. I was young when that happened. I remember that. And knew he did it too.
I bet when he
called for help. He called for that ambulance and stuff as soon as he did it.
I bet when he probably.
All right, Nick. That one wasn't placed that well, but I see what you're trying to do. What's gonna happen? Somebody gonna hit him. Somebody like Cam Jordan. Somebody just gonna hit him for the heck of it, just to and if he ain't gonna have no choice, he's 43 years old. The key is he never gets hit. Even when he played in New England, he never got hit that much. So I don't know. People are scared to hit him because they know it's a penalty. Touching him is a 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
They know it. I mean, you can't even like pat him, like come up and just hit him in the shoulders with your hands, and you know they're gonna throw a flag just because.
And don't get me wrong, he's great, but he gets credit for everything. Like even that, don't get me wrong, he was great, but that Super Bowl the Super Bowl this past year, he played well in the Super Bowl, but they won that Super Bowl because of the defensive front.
Oh yeah,
He played enough to manage the game.
Right, he didn't have a bad game at all. I'm not saying he was bad; he was solid. But
No,
I'm
I ain't saying.
about,
No, I'm agreeing with you saying. I'm just saying like he played enough to keep the game managed. Like
just like
he
when
did
Seattle won,
enough.
like when
He didn't
Seattle
have to
won the
do a
Super
lot
Bowl.
to win it.
Just like when Seattle won the Super Bowl, Russell Wilson at that time in his career, he was just a high level game manager, and he managed the game. But Malcolm Smith
The defense.
was
defense carried him.
Yeah,
that game was over before Wilson probably threw his 10th pass.
that game was over. The ball got snapped over my man.
Defense,
Hey.
as they say.
And the thing about it, Wilson ended up throwing for about 260 yards, but
Yeah.
about 200 of those came after the game was over. The game was already like 30 to 3 by the time he even got to throwing the ball.
Yeah, I think it was like 20 to nothing at halftime.
Right, maybe it was like 27 to nothing at halftime. Anyway, because they won the game by a huge margin, like 47 to 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's like 48 to 10 or something like that. But here's the crazy thing about it. Most of his passing yards came in the fourth quarter when they were already up like 40 to 3.
He was just trying to get some offensive rhythm because the defense did all the work.
They were trying to pat the stats up or whatever. Because when someone look at the stats, they might say, "Well, how come he didn't win MVP?" I'm like, he didn't because the game was already dominated.
Who won the MVP? Was it Bobby? No, KJ. No, Bobby.
Malcolm Smith, linebacker.
Malcolm Smith.
He had two defensive touchdowns. I know he had a fumble recovery touchdown. Then he had like a pick too.
No, I said that the defense won that year for them when Denver had that so-called high-power offense that first year. Peyton.
Yeah, but they couldn't block him. If you can't block a defensive front, you're in for a long time.
Oh, they had a defensive front that year. It was with Michael Bennett, that Mebane guy. I want to say it was Bruce Irvin on the edge.
Yeah, because Bruce Irvin played linebacker and defensive end.
Yeah,
they switched him back and forth. But yeah, Bruce Irvin was there.
But
There was somebody else on that defensive line, Guyon, I think that was his name.
They had some good linebackers too. So
yeah, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright.
Yeah, they would blitz the hell out of your ass. And then Malcolm Smith on the other end said, yeah, Bruce Irvin was defensive end. And then
you had that secondary that was
Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas playing safety.
Brandon Browner.
Browner was suspended for PEDs though. They had Walter Thurman and Maxwell. Thurman. It was Richard Sherman started one corner, and I think Walter Thurman and Maxwell split the time at the other corner.
Yeah.
And then Walter Thurman and Maxwell both turned out to be bums. When Walter Thurman went to the Giants, they ended up making him safety because he couldn't play corner. And then Maxwell went to Miami and stole money.
He said he stole money.
And then they traded him to Philadelphia, I think. And I was like,
"What career is good
He played with great corner and great safeties and a great front seven in front of him, and he was made to look better than what he was. Then he went to Miami where he was on an island by himself. And number one, I always hate when people. I'm not trying to put Josh Norman on the pedestal, but the year that Josh Norman did play great, he was great. You never want to say, "Oh, well, he's a cover 3 zone corner." I said, and they tried to argue was Sherman's the best corner, which I think Sherman was great the year. But Sherman also was a cover 3 zone corner. That's what Carolina ran the same defense that Seattle ran. They ran that Bill cover 3, Tampa 2, defense. That's the same. That's Richard Sherman still doesn't follow receivers. He lines up on one side of the field and he sits back in the cover 3 zone. He's great at doing it, but I'm saying, but that doesn't mean he is better than him. I'm not saying he's not aggressive. Everyone depends on the motion. I'm like, so was Sherman. And that Super Bowl against Kansas City when Sammy Watkins burnt his butt, you saw that he's not a guy that you
And you didn't have to put a safety on top of Daryl Reeves sometime in his heyday.
Nah, you didn't.
Whereas Sherman, I don't like this now, but Sherman is great at what he does, but you can't learn. To me, I'll make Richard Sherman a free safety.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll put him at a free safety and then he can roam. He can just roam the middle and play center field. Instead of trying, but they wanted to be a corner, and then Super Bowl he got exposed. And when they lost, when the 49ers lost to the Chiefs, especially in the fourth quarter. Sam Marcus toasted him for that big touchdown they gave him the lead. I'm not sure. I mean, great what he does, but he's always, to me, he's more of a guy who fits the scheme, and but he fits the scheme so well to where he's earned a reputation of being just a great individual talent. Whereas if you take him out of the scheme, I don't think he'd be as effective.
I ain't seen a true corner that'll go from sideline to sideline. Like
since Daryl Reeves.
Yeah, well, the Reeves.
Yeah, this is Daryl Reeves, yeah. And before him, it was.
I don't know, because the kid from the Raiders, they tried to hype him up there, but Philadelphia got exposed. Philadelphia blitzing all the time, whatever, leaving him out there, and I'm getting toasted. Whereas when he was with the Raiders, he back there playing, nobody even threw it on his side of the ball because he was with the Raiders, and when people just said, well, nobody throws on the side of the ball. I'm like, well, they sure threw it at him. He was in Philadelphia.
That damn sure did.
And then he was he married the chick from Scandal. He got one.
I just think they hyped him up to be like, they hyped him up. I ain't gonna say it was bad, but I just think he was just hyped.
I mean, he had some good years when he first got to Oakland, and then he lived off that reputation. He ate off his reputation and didn't really have to do much because they weren't in contention. Nobody's throwing on his side of the field. But then he went to another team where he was being counted on, and where people threw it at him all the time. Because he was on a blitz heavy team when he went to Philadelphia. The late Jim Johnson and Sean McDermott, they loved the blitz. They were blitzing, leaving him out there, and he got toasted.
Yeah, they had to expose him because, like you said, you put you there and you ain't contending for that. Oh shoot, they got Awesome Wall on that side. We ain't throwing the ball that way. We just gonna go to this side with the weak corner.
And then I'm trying to think who they had on the other side. They had a reputable name on the other side.
I think it was that dude from Texas, Huff. I don't think it was Huff.
Oh, for safety, ain't it?
I thought he played corner too.
You talking Michael Huff?
Yeah, the one from Texas. Well, he was safety.
Oh, he was safety.
Might have been safety. Well, it's Oakland. They put you anyway. He could have been quarterback.
Yeah, I know Oakland had Michael Huff. I might go for safety. I was talking about Philip when he was in Philadelphia. In Oakland, I'm trying to think of.
Oh, in Philadelphia, I think it was him and Asante Samuels.
Yeah, and in Oakland they had I think they had Stratford Route playing the other corner.
Some guy from
No. I tell you, it was Philip Buchanan. I think.
Okay.
I think they had Stratford Route too, but I think Philip Buchanan might have been playing the same thing. Then Buchanan went to the Houston Texans after that. I think it was him and Philip Buchanan playing the corner.
It's the Oakland Raiders, baby. It's the Oakland Raiders. Wherever they need you to play, you got to play.
Yeah, no, Derek Carr's overrated too. We ain't got on that.
Listen, Derek Carr. That's who should trade up for a fucking quarterback. But that ain't none of my business. That's who should have traded up for a quarterback if they needed a quarterback. Because we done gave the fans of Las Vegas / Oakland has gave Derek Carr 4 or 5 good years, and he ain't did nothing but.
And he had that one year they broke the thing around the playoff started, and they had to go with Matt McGloin in that playoff game, and they against the Texans, and they lost.
Oh,
they probably would have had home field advantage because Carr got hurt with like 2 weeks left in the season, and they were tied for like the second seed, and then they ended up losing the division and had to play a game in Houston with Matt McGloin at quarterback. Because he won't even back. I think Matt Flynn was back up there. He got hurt too.
He got hurt too. That's what I said. They was out. They was down on quarterbacks that year. They could have wanted to that. That year they could have been like.
That was when Jack Del Rio was the head coach.
Yeah, Jack Del Rio was a good defensive coach.
Yeah, we had him in Charlotte one year.
Oh yeah, so I hated when he left here because he was a part of a lot of our good defensive years with the
Well,
Panthers.
he was here 1 year, and then they
Well, yeah,
promoted defensive line coach Mike Turkovac to defensive. I didn't like Turkovac at all because
nah,
they were inconsistent with him. They finally fired Turkovac, and they brought in
McDermott was it
no,
McDermott?
I'm talking about John Fox brought somebody else in before when he fired
McDermott.
Turkovac. I'm trying to think of who he brought in. I'm trying to think of who was defense coordinator that 1 year before Fox left. Oh, that black guy, Ron Meeks. They used to
Yeah,
be.
Meeks. Yeah, I forgot about him.
They
He took
brought
a job. Where did he go? Did he go to Arizona? No, did no, no, no.
in. Rivera kept him 1 year and made him the defensive backs coach, and let him stay as demoted him to defensive backs coach. Then he left, and he's somewhere as defensive backs coach somewhere.
Okay.
I wasn't that crazy about Ron Meeks, but whatever. I was like, he came from the Colts, and they never had a good defense.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what it was. He came from the Colts. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah, he wasn't all that great.
he better Eric Washington. Though. Eric Washington was god awful. I blame that 2018 season on Eric Washington. And then he was so vanilla with his defense. I'm like, he's backing his safeties and he's backing his corners 15 yards. Oh, good. I've seen times maybe 3rd and 17, quarterback just pitch and catch, throw a 15-yard pass, do run for 2 yards to get the first down. I'm like, well, God, you got the corner back 20 yards off of him.
Yeah, he eat up yards. He get the first down. I didn't like Eric Washington, man. That year. I don't know what was going on. I don't know. I ain't gonna say.
Well, you got to realize Steve Wilkes ended up getting a head coach job, so he just promoted Eric Washington. And, he was in over that.
Yeah. I said that. I figured he wasn't ready for that move, that position.
Nah, and I like it. I'm sure he's a great guy and everything, but not everything's for everybody. It's just like this, man. If the Lakers call me and to come play to play two guard for them tomorrow, that's just not for me. I'm not able to do that, so I'm not gonna be a fool and try to go out there and do it.
Yeah.
Some things just not for you.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't for him. That's a part of that year too. I felt like even the games where our offense wasn't the best, the defense could have definitely probably been more, I would say, organized to where they could have been in and like those plays, like you said, 3rd and 17s, and we blown a 3rd and 17 and keeping the drive going where we could have went off the field.
Yeah, that happened, and some of those things were difference in games. I'm talking about. Okay, we lost a lot of close games in the back end of that season, and a lot of that was because of that. And but I guess it was Cam's job to play defense too.
Oh yeah, that was his fault though. If you tell it.
And don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say he was perfect and flawless. I mean, there were times where you had open receivers and he was inaccurate, and sometimes he missed receivers. I'm not saying he didn't, but it's like they blamed him for everything.
Oh yeah, he was like you said. He was a scapegoat. He was definitely the scapegoat for anything that went wrong in Carolina those years. If it was all good, he was good. But soon as something go wrong, they throw his name.
And then even sometimes he was good. People didn't want to give him. They still didn't necessarily want to give him credit. They always want to give credit to Kuechly in the defense. But then when we lose, it was all his fault. So it's almost like a lot of people didn't, after the stuff that happened in Auburn, a lot of people didn't want him here in the first place.
Yeah.
And in the area that we live in Carolina, he doesn't look like you want a quarterback to look in Carolina. You know what I mean? And it's like some people were waiting for him to fail and want him to fail. And as soon as something went wrong, they were waiting to pounce on him.
Just like I think they took that statement. You know that statement he said about that lady about
about the girl running around. And for the record, no, he shouldn't have said that, but it shouldn't have got blown up the way it did. They made it like he might have shot up a school or something the way they went on him. And they even had a story on CNN about it. I was like, come on now. Should he have said that? No. That's one he should have said. He should have said, "Hey, look, man, don't say that again. I'm sorry." But I'm like, but the way they blew that up and stuff, I'm like, oh my! I mean, it was all over the news and that on CNN and all that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that was it.
That's another
subject for another day.
So and like I said, so when I hear black people going out of the way to criticize them, I was like, you already know that you have a lot of other people that criticize black quarterbacks for the most minute things. I'm like, why are you? And I'm like, so why are you going in there helping this narrative? I'm like, even if you feel that way, don't just publicly just do this. I'm like, you know the stigma that comes with black quarterbacks, and then when I see black people going out using those same type lines that are used against black quarterbacks off my white media, and they're sitting there touting those lines, that used to bother me. I'm like, you're going out of the way to tell this brother down what because you don't like the clothes he wear, and then you get making insinuations about his sexuality and all that. First of all, the many children as he got, I don't think his sexuality is in question. Number two, even if it was, that ain't got nothing to do with playing football.
Right. Yep. Right. What they got to do with that man's talent?
Right. And then some of the same people who try to rip him and call him gay are the same people who have gay friends and family members.
Yep. The kids that man got.
But yet they want to question the sexuality. Number one, his sexuality is none of our business.
That's true. It's none of our business.
Just like
that man got a whole football team of kids. I was like, can't be that gay.
What you about to say, Horn?
The guy they drafted about maybe 5 years ago, it came out right before
Michael Sam.
Yeah,
he was SEC Defensive Player of the Year too. I think that he got blackballed out of the league, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's like that right there. If he would have never came out right now, I think he probably would be in the NFL. I'm not saying
he was SEC Defensive Player of the Year. We talking about the mighty SEC. He was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, but didn't get drafted to the 6th round. Now tell me in the modern era, has there ever been an SEC Defensive Player of the Year get drafted that late?
Nope.
No, and that's the thing. That was the first.
And then in the preseason that year, in the 4 preseason games, he had 3.5 sacks, but still didn't make the roster. I'm like, come on now.
That was right there. That showed me like they already had him.
Number 1, 2.
And I'm sitting there like, this is the way I look at it. If you can play ball, you can play ball. Who you sleep with ain't none of my business.
That's it. But like you said, I feel like he got blackballed too.
And I'm sitting there like, but we're supposed to be in this era where we're no longer judging people by stuff like that. And I'm sitting there like, it's like this. Just because I'm straight, that ain't got nothing to do with me respecting you as a ball player.
I think people are more politically incorrect just to get attention. It's not even the fact that they just want to be politically correct.
Right, because at the same time, it's not like he owed the world an announcement about his love life anyway. I mean, I'm not sitting here blaming him for being cut, or I'm not doing a victim blaming type thing. But my point is, to me, it didn't matter whether he was straight or gay, like what or bi or whatever. I'm like, what difference does it make? My point is, you're on a job interview to play ball. Like you don't like when you apply for a job like when you I'm not gonna call nobody's employer's name out because I'm just saying, but when you apply to work for your employer, and I know you're a straight man, you didn't go to them and say, hey, just so you know, this is my sexuality. When I apply for my job where I'm at, I'm like, hey, I'm straight or this that. I don't, because that's nobody's business. Horn, I'm sure when you apply for wherever you work, you didn't say, hey, I'm Dr. Horn and I'm straight. That's not necessary because whatever your sexuality is has nothing to do with your job. Your job doesn't have any business delving into those things anyway. So there was no need for him to even have to disclose that to potential employers.
Oh yeah,
their business.
But somehow
I think he tried to put it out there.
Could the NFL would have leaked it? Somebody would have leaked it.
Yeah, eventually he tried to go ahead and put it out there. So okay, so I'm telling y'all this out my mouth. But later on, it would have been like 27 different stories. Oh, yeah,
but here's the thing. But if someone leaked it, so it's just like this. When I work at home now, but when I was working on site, there are people around where you hear stuff about people say, I heard that, he can, they say so and so, a little so and so. My point is, I'm like, that's just a part of it, but that don't mean that we're gonna try to get this person fired or nothing. It's just like, well, I don't care. Like, I'm here to do my job, not to find out who's sleeping with who. Right. I'm here to do my job. I'm here to make money.
There you go. That's what you're supposed to be.
Nick and Horn, I'm sure y'all have heard people say stuff about certain people like, yo, they say so and so prefers
Yeah.
this type person or whatever. They
Oh
do
yeah,
this. But at the same time, you're like, dude, I'm here to get paid. I'm not here. I don't care who he or she dealing with. I'm here to get my money.
yeah.
I just be like, I don't care. I tell him real quick, I don't care.
I mean, it ain't got nothing to do with me. As long as he don't, I mean, I just say
Right.
that's his business. That's my business. I mean, I have
Hey,
my business.
My last name ain't even Bennett, and I ain't in it. So.
right, and I think we need to get to a point in society where it's like, to me, it should be who cares. Like it's like this. Whatever you do is your business. I'm not involved in any of that. So if it ain't involving me, it's not who you prefer to date is your business.
Right.
I'm like, and I'm like, and it saddens me that a man's career may have been impacted because he was telling his truth, and I think the guy could ball. The thing about it, the guy could ball. That's all that mattered. And I'm like,
Yeah,
it
Yeah,
should
I went to the combine for y'all to see my athletic talent, but when I come out and explain my sexuality presentation, oh, you can't play. It's basically what you're telling me without saying it. Because
yeah,
how do I go from SEC Player of the Year to a top draft prospect to a 6th round pick in a matter of days?
yeah.
yeah.
How?
Like, like
But I
you,
mean, I would say the NFL, but this is the thing that kind of trust me. I love football. I love the NFL. I like to watch the game, but this is what, like you said, the stigma that I struggle with the NFL. You see it. You see that bottom line on a lot of different things when it comes to a certain particular type of player all the time. Like you said, with Cam, they quick to do that, throw that gesture, oh, something's wrong with his sexuality. But
yeah.
but behind the lines, tell me how many others have the same sexuality, but they're not trying to, let's say, project that out there or look into it because they just think, oh, he just plays football. He's just a football player, this, that, or whatever. We come into this as potential stars. I'm saying these stars because these are stars. Like Cam Newton was a high draft pick. LeVar Jackson, look at how he fell in the draft, and he was reared a good pick in the draft. And we, like I say, we've seen it this draft.
Yeah,
We
we did.
always go into these situations where we have a chip on our shoulder for what?
Well, we're always put in a situation where we have to go above and beyond just to show that we're just as good.
Yeah,
We have to go. Our aptitude always gets questioned. Like, is he smart and like and let's I'll do the same draft. Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun Watson, and then this has nothing to do with Deshaun Watson's pending legal situation. This here is back then when none of that stuff was even in play, and we're talking strictly about football. Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun. When Trubisky was second pick in the draft, they both played in a similar style offense in North Carolina and Clemson. Both of them played in a spread
Formation.
but when Deshaun Watson came out, it was questions about can he handle NFL pro style offense. He played in the college one read offense with zone read elements and all that stuff. Great athlete. People forget that Mitch Trubisky ran a 4.6 and was a mobile and a dual threat quarterback as well. Ran for about 500 or something yards, and ran for touchdowns and stuff that year too. And played in a zone read type offense, similar one read option route type offense as well. But they praise his aptitude and his ability, his command, his footwork, and all that. Whereas they question would Watson be able to offense when they both played in a similar college style offense. And there is under no logical reason you could argue that Mitch Trubisky should have gone ahead of Deshaun Watson. And now Mitch Trubisky is I don't even know whose team is he still with the Bears?
Well,
think so.
if Justin Fields
He,
get that job, he may not be.
yeah, he hanging on by.
Well, they signed Andy Dalton because Andy Dalton thought that he was going to be the starter. So I'm trying to think that they released Trubisky.
Listen, I like Andy Dalton, but don't.
He was solid. He was a solid starter for the Bengals, but that didn't.
But when he had opportunity in Dallas and it didn't translate after Prescott got hurt.
Nah, he had weapons. At least he had
I thought
receivers.
this. Andy Dalton was much better than I thought he was going to be coming out of TCU.
Yeah.
I didn't think that. I didn't really like him at TCU. So this, he was much better than I thought he was going to be.
Well, guys, we are at technically we're at the 2 hour mark as of right now, man. I've enjoyed the night.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Good conversation.
Yeah,
this was enjoyable.
Yeah. You know, this is every Thursday, man. This is us. That's it.
Yeah, I skipped out on you last week, man. I had some other matters I had to tend to.
Yeah, I understand. Like I say, hey, we're gonna rock the show either way, man. You know, this is how we do. We're gonna make something next week. We're gonna have a better topic. I'm pretty sure next week we'll be gearing up for the playoffs. That's probably what we're gonna do. Playoffs. That's what we need.
God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet again. Till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. Good night, folks. Thank you for coming out.
Oh yeah, I appreciate y'all for coming out, man. See y'all next week on the next episode. We got a live stream Saturday. Tune into that too. And like I said, if you ain't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, share the video, like the video, and this is the Culture Controversial Podcast, man. We signing out.
All right.
All right.
See you.
See you.